Captain and Fat Finger once again destroying everything. We pressed the wrong button. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna be blaming it on being tired, but it's not it. So yeah. So when it came to depression, I still had to make content, right? And it's a very different thing because when I had my first depression due to as we were making content, it was a case. I'm just gonna be uploading some clips if you don't mind. It was a case of I need to work, and I really need to work, right? Now it was more so a case of I'm so used to doing this because we've been doing this for 4 years. I'm so used to doing it that it became a routine. But worse than that, I'm so used to doing this that when I don't do it, I don't feel comfortable. Not because it's a part of me, but because it's so ingrained in me, right? It's funny because the goal behind also making content with, yes, I'm not gonna change the story. I'm not gonna change the blueprint. I was getting bullied. I was tired of this. I hated my life. I wanted to become somebody else. So we created the channel, right? But at the same time, if I'm being completely honest, every single job that I had, I was a shitty employee. I wasn't the guy who goes a step further. I would be a hard worker. I would do overtime. If people told me, "Hey, can you stay?" I would always say yes. I was available. I was always there. I never missed. And when I missed, it was due to, you know. Um. So yeah. So, on that note, I was pretty freaking reliable. That I was never the guy who made the extra step, right? And now there's nothing wrong with being that. A lot of people are gonna be just like me and gonna be working to live, not living to work, right? I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty normal. There's nothing wrong here. It's all part of the same system of I need to do something, a need versus a want. I need to work versus I want to relax with my family, right? Um, and I was making content, and it was just uncomfortable. And the worst part about this obsession that I have with making content is when I didn't do it, I was like, dude, what are you doing? You should have made some content. And I keep on mentioning that I have content saved up. Like for example, we have 1,000 clips uploaded to YouTube that I have to rename and I have to publish because as of right now they're draft. But still the context of using video that you already have, it's so weird because again I'm watching people make content and I get inspired because just like when Shao took picture, I was in love with the mental behind it. The picture was nice, of course, but the main focus wasn't the picture. The main focus was the fact that he was really talented. And imagine, right? Imagine that you're coming from a family of doctor, right? And your family of doctor, all of your siblings are a sort of doctor. Your father's a doctor. Your mom's a doctor, right? And then later on, you learn that your grandfather, because you never heard of him, he was a musician, and you're really put into music. Your first thought isn't gonna be like, oh, we're the same. Your first thought is gonna be like, yo, there's somebody else that's artsy in this domain or in this household, and that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool because you feel less alone. So a child was in love with the context, but also in love with people that make content and people that are really on a grind. Um, when I had a depression, right? The first thing that I thought was like, oh, dude, I'm letting people down. The second thing that I thought was like, dude, what am I gonna do, right? Because I'm actively looking for work, and it's not working. The job search is harder than expected. It's a lot harder than expected. I wish I could tell you good news, but there's no good news to be talked about. So I'm like, what am I gonna do, right? And I want to mention again that making content for me was it became a plan A. Um, and I often say that it's a plan A that should have been or should have stayed a plan B. But the truth isn't that. The truth is it's a plan A that became a plan A because we had no plan A. We had no plan A. My goal was just to find a job, just to work to pay the bills, and that's it. I didn't care what was the job. I didn't care how much I had to work. I didn't care how long I was gonna work there. I was raised like that. I was raised into saying you need to work. Doesn't matter what you do, you need to work. This is such a fucked up mentality. This is such a mentality of, well, I don't really have a choice, let's do it, right? Such a mentality of sheep, of hive mind. And there's nothing wrong with working, but you should have a purpose in life. Right? If your purpose is to become a father, awesome. If your purpose is to be the best worker you can be, then fucking go ahead. Fucking go ahead. Good for you. My purpose isn't that. My purpose right now is to make content because I get to talk, I get to be happy, I get to inspire people. See, I was making a video yesterday, and I'm gonna sound so fucking narcissistic, but I made a video yesterday because the Outdoors Boy, which is a channel that I love, the guy behind it, Luke, is taking a break from making content, right? And ultimately speaking, one of the videos that I made years ago, one of my first videos that I ever made, was about like a torchbearer, right? And how Chester died and Rich Piana died, and those two were my role model. And I'm like, I feel bad because those people will not have a role model. So what am I? Not what am I supposed to do, but how can I help, right? And it was about the next generation, right? So for example, there's one of my followers, Andrew, also Michael, but more Andrew because I talk to Andrew more often. But Andrew and Michael's, they're younger dudes, right? And they're all younger dudes. There's also Canadian, and it's a case of I cannot talk to them. I cannot talk to them without feeling like a big brother. A lot of people that I talk to, I know that if it wasn't for content, I wouldn't be talking to them, right? So in some cases I have friends that are outside of it, and for Andrew and Michael, I kind of talk to these guys without feeling like a big brother or wanting to mentor them or wanting to help them and to show them the way because, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. They're good kids. They're good kids. They're fucking so promising. Michael has a job. He goes to school. That's a hard worker, and it's my job almost as a bigger brother to tell him, dude, there's more to life than this, right? And ultimately, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But right, I don't know. It's just a felt a need for that. This need that came from the fact that people that I considered role model died or left, right? And then with Outdoors Boys, he wasn't happy making content anymore. And we also talk about people having a burnout, right? With YouTube and making content. Most people stop making content because they have a burnout, right? But what we're talking about it's weird because we're not talking about the people that have been there since a long time. We're always talking about new accounts, right? Like for example, I was nervous because my finish date for the unemployment was coming, and I was like, why is it not working? And I went on a Reddit, and then people were constantly saying, hey, my channel is doing well. And then I started asking people for the channel, and it was always fucking edit content. There was no original content, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with editing content, but I feel like there's still a need for original content. I feel like there's still a need for doing this. The video that I'm doing right now will have no impact. It will not change anybody's life. It will not change anything and anybody perception of me, hopefully. Even then, when I started making content because I was depressed, at first I was like, and I don't want to sound ungrateful. I love you guys. I really do. At first I was like, wow, I'm so lucky my community understands, right? But then I didn't feel like people were holding me accountable. It was take your time, take your time, take your time. I didn't lose a single follower. A single follower. From not making content for like a month. For not answering comments. People didn't care. Right? And I think people are understanding of my situation. At the same time, I want to be held accountable. I want to be told, dude, you're fucking up. What are you doing, dude? What's the next video? When is the next live, right? Not because I need people to care, but because I need to be told, like, yo, you gotta have. We're doing so much for you, and you guys are doing so much for me. You truly are, and I want people to be like, yo, we're doing so much for you. What are you doing back for us? Oh, this relationship, this friendship, isn't mutual, right? Um, yesterday was a yesterday, but it was before yesterday. We just didn't sleep. It was a crazy day because we saw cousin that I haven't seen in more than a decade, right? And they welcomed me back with open arm, and it's like nothing ever happened. And I was grateful for it, but I was like also like, dude, I kind of fucked up. I should have made more effort to talk to you guys and be close to you guys, right? And I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that they didn't hold a grudge. But if they hold a grudge, I would have understood. And then you're in this limbo, this sort of limbo where you're like, well, I don't really know how I feel about it, right? How I feel to be forgiven. See, what part of maturity, as a kid, whenever I would ask, I would beg for forgiveness. Whenever I was forgive, I was like, okay, cool. Even last year with my father, when we had this big fight, I was looking for forgiveness, and the reason for depression was because he said something about not forgiving me, and you want to earn that forgiveness. You don't want that forgiveness to be given. That forgiveness doesn't mean shit. How many times did you forgive somebody but you wanted nothing to do with them, right? Even then, it's always a question of if it was meant to be or not. Some friendship, I fought for some friendship that was not meant to be. Making content, maybe that was not meant to be. You know, when people are saying like, "What do you think?" Oh, yeah, we have a pimple, and it kind of hurts. So let's pop that bitch. Do not pop your pimple at home. It can leave mark. I'm not gonna get to uglier, so I don't really mind. You know, this people. I was talking about how maybe something that was not meant to be, and then people were like, why do you think this is meant for you? Well, I like talking. I like being social, but it's really hard. I don't have this humongous social battery, right? And I was talking about this before yesterday. I'm like, I cannot expect my life to always be a safe place. There's always gonna be troll, right? People are jealous of success. I had a guy, and this is a true story. I had a guy, I'm not gonna say his name, but he was coming to the live every single day before. And I trust him so much I became a mod. And then I stopped doing it live because of a mental health reason, right? And then when I came back, I lost a lot of people that were coming to the live on a daily. And it's normal. And then he came in and is he didn't say shit. He was like, "Oh, the falling ink fell off because I didn't get as much views as I was getting," and it hurt my feelings so much because I was like, "Dude, we're friends. Why are you saying that? We're friends. You shouldn't be saying that." But this guy had the balls, had the honesty to talk about something that possibly a lot of people talk about. See, right now what we're doing is we have drafts that we didn't post. They don't have a name. So we have to rename them. So what I do is I just take the name of the game, and it's as simple as that. So we save it, and then what we're gonna do is gonna be posting it because think YouTube is stupid. When you post it multiple videos at a time, it is gonna post them. That's still a hurt fuck as a draft, and then you have to take the draft and post them all. So that sucks. Oof, I burned myself. Computer's warm. So yeah, so with making the content is also about being open minded as people are not gonna like you, right? And it's putting yourself out there. And that's something that also I've never done. I never put myself out there. When giving the choice, I would stay alone. When giving the choice, I would stay home. But then me stopping meant what? Because again, the subject of this video is making content. Me stopping meant what? It meant that it had a weight off my shoulder. I felt free. I felt like I could do something. I felt like I could relax. And all of these are my own volition. I want to be in a case where I don't work. I could have gone to sleep. You know what I could have done? I could have put two alarm only. All I had to do was to put an alarm clock after 1 hour, film from the window, from the bed, film, post it, charge a phone, and that's it. That's all I had to do. Did I do it? No. Should I have done it? Possibly. Who knows? At this point, who knows? But you know what I know? I'm out here making videos. See, there's this. I have a mental sickness, and it's not ADHD. I know ADHD is the obvious one, but I have this such a toxic relationship with making content. I have an obsessive personality. I get addicted. I have an addictive personality. So whenever there's a thing that I can get addicted to, I'll get addicted to really quickly. And I'm not the most cautious guy. People are gonna be like, "You be careful with that," you know. And even when I had the item impression a month ago, they were like, "Yo, take this product," and I started taking this product, and I didn't calculate how much time I had. So I'm like, "Doc, I'm out of it. I'm out of medication." It's like, "Okay, well, you can see me in 2 days because it was a Friday. Come see me on Monday," which is again incredible. Um, and for the weekend, I was stressing out because I didn't have the medication. I'm like, dude, these are a crutch. You don't need that crutch. I had this same mentality with making content, and I'm not playing victim. I'm not being dramatic. This is my opinion. This is, of course, my train of thought. This is what I'm thinking right now. You could ask me this question in a month. Maybe my opinion change. I don't fucking know. But it's so poetic. Whenever I complain about being so tired, there's pride in that. There's pride in the fact that we stayed up. Whenever the best possible memories that I have, and this is so selfish, and I feel bad about saying this because you guys should be the main reason why I'm happy, but my best memories of making content, and here I'll be completely honest, is just is having such a busy day that you're tired. You're tired, but you know that you spend a day doing some good job. You know, you're fatigued. You're not tired. You're fatigued. Holy shit! What a day! I worked so hard, right? And when you think about it, it's not because as we're talking about this right now, I'm thinking about it, right? And I've had this feeling before. I've had this feeling before when I was working out. When I was working out. So maybe this whole making content, this whole social media thing, it's just getting out of my comfort zone. It's just pushing myself to be a better person, a stronger person, a way better. See, my cousin yesterday was weird because I saw them how they evolved, right? And I was talking about them, and I was talking about how yes they evolved, but I still knew them so much that I could kind of tell. I could kind of tell, like, okay, well, this is still my cousin. This is still like, for example, with my youngest cousin Louis. Louis is a nerd, and he was still a nerd, and I fucking love that he's a nerd. Samuel, my cousin that is the closest in my mind, um, completely in love with working out, but he isn't in love with working out. My cousin Patricia, a woman of opinion, and it's so nuts because Patricia the one that changed the most. Patricia, she had such an issue with her emotion. She's not a bad person, but she gets impulsive, right? And then I saw her before yesterday, and she was so calm. And then there was moments where she would get mad, but she brought up her own herself, and she's possibly the one that did the most work out of it. And you're seeing them evolve, right? And then you look at yourself. I don't have any brother, but if I had brother, we would have this relationship, right? That's how close we were. My father's house, it's a duplex. You know it's a duplex, right? So my father is the owner. He lives on the first floor. The second floor is for possible renter. Um, the first renter that he had for 6, 7 years, was my uncle and my aunt. So I grew up, when I was born, they were the renter for the first 6 7 years of my life. My parents got divorced. This is a crazy story. My parents got divorced. Um, this is such a this is so there's so much that makes sense, and yes, I'm tired, so maybe I'm delusional. Yes, I'm tired, so maybe what I'm saying is not making sense, and maybe I'm gonna wake up and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about here, Inc? The first years of my life, I had my cousin. They were really close, and we were more so brother than cousin. I was the fourth sibling. My parents, this is nuts. My parents got divorced. I was 6 years old. My cousins left the upstairs apartment. I was 7 years old, almost eight. And then we grew up, and I was seeing the chaos and how hard it was for three growing adults to be in the same house. My Samuel and Louis always fighting, always fighting. It was mostly Samuel starting it, but Louis was, and I was fond of Louis because Louis was defending himself, right? Patricia, who was going through, she was older than me, so she came a teenager, but way before me. And she was also a woman, so it's very different. And always fighting with her parents because they didn't understand her. They didn't look to understand her. And it's crazy because when I got older, I dealt with the same problem. When I stopped being submissive, when I stopped saying yes, I think my parents were saying, I was like, okay, well, fuck you. It's crazy. The first time I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was. And this is the crazy part. My father asked me to do something. I looked at him and I said no. His mouth dropped. That was the first one I ever told him. I said, what did you say? He was like, go to your room. And I could hear him talking because I was in my room. My room, the wall were thin. And he would say, I can't believe he said no. I don't know what to do. And I felt proud, but it was the same thing Patricia was talking about, saying no to the parents, which was crazy. This comparing to yourself to your siblings or to a close cousin or to your friends, right? You compare yourself, and it's not so much competitive. Maybe it is competition. I don't think so. Even you're comparing yourself, and sometimes you're consoling yourself or not. So when I grew up, I was seeing the chaos of the tree, hide the three kids, and I was happy that I didn't have siblings. So it was the same thing, and again, this is the weirdest thing, but it was the same thing as being a grandparents. And being a grandparent mean that you get to see your kids because they're your kids, but they're still kids. But when you're tired, okay, goodbye, go, and it doesn't matter. So being a cousin was that, right? And at time I was like, well, you know, it's insane. It's insane because maybe that's what I needed. Maybe I needed to compare myself to say, hey, maybe what you're doing is wrong. I told you one of the worst things that I did in life was, dude, I want to go sleep, but we're gonna finish this and that's it. How can I even put this into word? The worst thing I did, and this is hard to admit, but was being alone because I didn't have opposing thoughts. Everything that I thought about it for so long that I thought it was the only truth, and it wasn't the only truth. It was the only truth because that's the only truth that I knew, but it wasn't the only truth, right? So when you put yourself out there, when you put yourself on social media, you're gonna make some close bonds. Sometimes those close bonds are gonna tell you, "Fuck you, you're wrong," right? And you're looking for that, and you're not looking for yes men because what's the point of having a yes men? So maybe I'm putting myself out there. Maybe I feel the need to talk about videos. Maybe I feel the need to talk about opinion. I'm telling you something, and it's gonna sound crazy, but I hate making a video or having an idea for a video. So, for example, I'm gonna do a video about how hard it is to find a job, right? And I'm gonna write down the ID for not for this. I'm gonna write down the ID, and again, it's gonna stay in ID, and then a week later, I forget that I have this to do this, and I'm looking for new IDs for videos. And I go in my nose and I see that. And my opinion completely changed. So because my opinion completely changed, what changed my mind? Did I have some new information? Which okay said, okay, well you're wrong. Or was it because the original concept or the original ID wasn't good? And I think putting yourself out there is needing that, is looking for that. It's not necessarily self harm, but it's putting yourself in the public opinion. It's like this guy, and it's gonna sound extremely narcissistic, but it's like this guy who has a thesis, right? And he's a mathematician, and he has this thesis, and he's presenting it, and he's afraid that somebody is gonna come in, right? And then there's a person who's gonna get some prizes because he's the first guy that figured it out. I don't know what he figured out, but he figured out something. And then he goes to a conference, right? And then there's other experts, and they're looking at it, and they're here to share the glory of him and say, hey, congratulations. And then we listen to this thesis, and then there's a guy who raises his hand and says, hey, you're wrong. Everybody's looking at him like he's an asshole. No, the real asshole is the person in the crowd that knew that he was wrong and didn't say shit. You know? To me, that's what I need. And again, this would fall into the pretense of being held accountable, right? And being held accountable is so freaking important. Not important again in the sense of, well, this is something that I'm missing, something that I need, but more so in a sense of, well, maybe that's what maybe that's something that's missing from my life. Maybe that's something that I have to put myself through. I just said something incredible, not something that I need, and then right after I said something I need. And that's when you know that you really need something. Versus you want. It's always going to be about want and need. I need something, but I'm so against the concept, right? Nobody's going to put themselves on a public, towards the public opinion and say, hey, lynch me, fucking throw me rocks, right? But then when they do throw you rocks, you're like, okay, well, maybe I deserve them. And then coming back to the making content, this is really attractive. This is really addictive, right? Another part, I was talking about being fatigued, right? I fell in love with concepts. So at the height of, if I'm being completely honest, I went crazy. I did go crazy. Last October, I was crazy. I went insane. I didn't go to a mental asylum, of course, but I went insane. I was obsessed with making content, obsessed to a point where it wasn't healthy. Obsessed to a point where I was injuring my own health to make content. I lost friends, I lost close friends. People started judging me, people left. It was my fault because I became crazy. I became obsessed, and again, my father would call and say, hey, come take a coffee. Which is 45 minutes, and I was like, fuck you, I have to work. I didn't say fuck you, but I said I had to work. It's like about proper. I had this neighbor. If she says hello and I don't answer, she'll come and knock me and say, hey, I'm talking to you. So I have to make sure that and I thought she talked to me. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. It is so nonsensical when you think about it, but it is the truth. I lost friends, but those people that left, they weren't assholes. Look how close they are, guys. You see them. You see how close they are? That's insane. That is insane. That's why they're not mad at me for talking in the morning, because they're so used of having bird. The person that lived here before, small little pause. The person that was there before me was feeding pigeon. When I came into the apartment, I was being awake by pigeon beaking the window to get fed. And I'm like, wrong guy. You know? At the height of the craziness, I did a video that will always trouble me. That always trouble me. I made a video about something that Conor McGregor said. he had this whole speech about. Now what we're doing is we're watching Orange Frank. Frank get Russian guy locked up in prison. A really good video. So, like I was saying, I don't even know where I was. Okay, cool. I was reacting to this Conor McGregor video where he was saying, like, he was talking about Van Gogh and how he went crazy, and he was talking about how he lost his mind for the sport and what makes him so good. And at the end, he romanticized the idea with saying that if my wife has a car for every single day of the week, if my mom never have to pay one bill again, if the kids of my grandkids, if they never have to work, then I will have went crazy for the right reason. And a lot of people are saying, yo, dude, this guy's off. And I saw poetry in there. You know? I mean, I was like, dude, this is what I want to do. This is the way I want to go out. You know? I became, and again, this is not self-harm. This is not a cry for help, please. This is just me talking. I became in love with the idea of killing myself slowly. I found the idea of killing myself slowly to be romantic. For weeks on end, I would push myself to the brink of falling asleep to make videos, because I was like, dude. And then you become aware of that. You become used to it. And when you don't fall tired, like, dude, you haven't worked hard. So you have this very toxic relationship with making content, right? And then finally, because we're gonna be finishing this video on that note, thank God we've been talking for what, an hour and a half. The reason why we're making this video is insane. 3 weeks ago, I made a video saying, hey, I feel better, but I'm afraid because I know what made me sick, and I was making content, and I was being obsessed with making content, and filming, and filming. Oh no, and posting, because we know we gotta post. And it made me insane, right? And I was feeling better, and my very first thoughts. And it's funny because making content for me is a passion, it's a dream, but it's also a job. So it's like this guy who, and trust me, I got injured. I got a broken leg, I got a broken ankle, I got a broken finger, and it was the same as going to work and saying, "Oh, you're injured, you cannot work. Okay, heal, take your time, you're good. We love you," right? And then, well, I'm healed. Let's go back to work. It's not like that for making content, but then again, for example, if you're injured yourself with a certain machine, there is this apprehension when you're working with that machine, because you still you you still have to use it, right? You're just more apprehensive. And with making content, I was way more insistent, and I was like, I'm afraid that if I do too much content, I'm gonna fall in. I'm afraid if I do, I felt this is true, but I felt bad about making 2 live TikTok last week, because I was like, dude, what if people expect me to be live on TikTok? Fuck what people expect. If they want to see you live, that's great, that's cool for you. But nobody is expecting you. Nobody will obligate you to do it. If you're doing it, you're doing it. If you don't, you don't. That's it. There's no plot to the bomb. As simple as that. And then making content, I was really very, very apprehensive. So I was like, dude, you know yourself. You know yourself. You know that you have an addictive personality. You know that you're gonna push yourself to the point of self-destruction. And then you're gonna self-destruct, and then you're gonna have the same mental issue that you've been having. You're gonna be having the same problem, and you see even when you talk about like self-destruction, maybe think about the mental health issue. I don't regret being sick. I don't regret being in depression. I don't regret having took time off to heal. What I regret, and this again, people are gonna think I'm crazy, but don't drop the phone. What I regret is that the time that we took off, it made every single day, every single week, every single moment that I spent sweating blood and tears useless. Because if I made some normal content, I would have as much content. I would have made as much videos. That's what I regret. I regret pushing myself to the brink of self-destruction just to be like, well, we self-destruct, we have to repair. No, there's a reason why you self-destruct, right? There's a need for consequences. There's a need for a follow-up. If the follow-up to self-destruction shouldn't be repair, the follow-up to repair, okay. The follow-up to self-destruction could be repair. That's good. But the response to repair shouldn't be self-destruction. You're like, I self-destruct, I repair, that's it. I'm not gonna fix it once. There's this whole fucking verbiage of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. You know? So why fix it? Yeah. Yeah. It's just that's just the thing, right? And I I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional because thinking about the video that I did. So we're talking about my ex today. And this ex, Noemi, a really good ex, really good girlfriend, by the way. She pushed me so much. She was trying to get me to improve, and she was being honest. It was like, hey, I saw this video, I don't agree, etc. And she was really trying, right? And then I really fell for that girl. Really had emotion for her. I fell in love, which is normal, right? And then I hurt her feelings, right? And the thing with Noemi, it was up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. But when it was up it was delicious, it was amazing. When it was down, I felt bad. So we made a video because I heard her feeling and I was crying, right? And then she saw the video that I was crying, and it's like, this is what we want to see. They want to see emotions, right? And this crying was a form of art in itself because it was raw emotion, pure emotion. You don't want to go there. You don't want to push yourself to the brink of tearing up. Just like you don't want to push yourself to self-destruction. But what if self-destruction is an art, right? What if maturing was going through hardship? What if those hardship was me being fatigued, me being tired, and me knowing that no matter how tired I am today, I'll have to do the same thing tomorrow. We've been making content for 4 days now, almost nonstop. We've been making more content in the last 4 days than in the last month, right? It's nuts. It's nuts. I could be afraid. I could be really afraid that I'm gonna go back into the self-destructing mode. But the reality isn't that. The reality is, right now I feel like making content. Right now I feel like making videos. Right now I'm inspired. Right now I'm motivated. Right now I feel like I'm back on the prime. Right now I feel like I'm indestructible. And it isn't normal. It is a very scary feeling to go from wanting to self-destruct to being invincible. You almost feel like like a madman. You feel in denial, you know. But then, and again, this is not planned. This is not me doing an hour and a half just to go to this. But it's the classic Icarus. So a lot of people that have made attempt to take away their own life, they get a tattoo of Icarus. So Icarus, and it's a mythology, Greek mythology. So what he was a kid, and him and his father was in jail. We don't know why they were in jail. They were in jail. Maybe we know why, but I don't remember. dude, we were 94%, we're at 60% battery. What the fuck? And the father is like, I don't mind dying here, but I want you to get out of here and live your life. So Icarus is like, okay, dad, okay, dad, no problem. So then, what the father does is, he's a brilliant writer, right? And he asks the prison guard to say, give me feather and ink. Y vendetta. um, so yeah, so what happened was, he took the wax from the candle, he took the feather and he made some wings, right? And then they were able to escape the prison, right? And Icarus was like, "Yo, I'm finally free. I'm finally free. I'm finally free." And then with his freedom, he went crazy and he's like, "You know what? How free am I really?" And he went close to the sun. And his father told him, don't go too close to the sun." But he went too close. So then then, dude, what a video! I'm tired. We went from 97 to 14%. That's crazy. Um, and then he falls to the water, right? And then people say, "Oh, the victim was Icarus." No, the victim was the father, because the father was willing to sacrifice his life for his son to go up, right? And then maybe we're crashing out. See, I've been watching a lot of content, right? And right now, what's popular is, last year the popular content was lolcow. Now it's crash out. So we're seeing Fusi. Me and Fusi share the same birthday, by the way. Just a little flex, not a flex because he's an asshole, but still. Um, and the crashing out, it presents itself in different fashion. Maybe right now we're crashing out and I don't even know. During the last 4 days, I made so much content, and there's just a certain pride to it. And I'm gonna go sleep, and the first thing I'm gonna do is make more content, right? And I'm gonna be happy because I made some content. And I feel this. There's this feeling of accomplishment. There's this feeling of you're doing something. You know. If I'm being completely honest, I hate myself because a lot of what I'm doing is asshole behavior. In the sense of, I don't really want to work as hard as I'm working, but I know that I'm not the most talented, and I know that I don't have anything special. So I use working hard as an excuse, right? I use working hard as a way of saying, you know what? Even if I'm not the best, I still deserve because I worked so hard, right? I put in so much time. I put in blood, sweat, and tears. Blah 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 blah. All that bullshit, right? But in the end, I feel like this is a complex of inferiority, and this complex of inferiority pushes me to be this guy, right? And being this guy is being the guy that works the hardest, because working the hardest is the easiest. All you need to do is go a little crazy and you got it, right? So so me. You know, it's just insane because there's a huge part of me. A huge part of it is, I want to be able to say that. I want to be able to brag. I want to be able to be proud of myself, right? And it's such a toxic mentality to be, to only be able to be proud of yourself when than somebody else, right? Right? That's a broken system, but you're the broken system, right? So maybe those 4 days are just me trying to get back, and me making this content has definitely helped me feel better. I feel so much better. I feel like a new man. I feel reborn. I feel like I'm unstoppable. I feel so good working, to be honest, working, right? And we made a video about how I felt good about working at the government, and I felt good working in the flower shop. And I'm feeling good working right now to make content because it's a dream and it's a passion. But most of all, it's because I'm doing something constructive. But maybe, just maybe I'm feeling great because I'm doing something that nobody else gonna do. I could have went to sleep. You know what's the difference? Nobody is up at 6:35 in the morning doing content. Nobody. But what does it mean? What does it mean long term? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Does it change anything? Does it change something? Should it change something? That's the question. Should it change something? No. At the very end, we're done. I got 4% battery, so I finish this quickly. At the very end, I felt romanticized by the whole thought of what Conor McGregor said. If I lose my mind, and I truly know that I succeeded. Maybe it's been self-sabotaging since day one. Maybe I was so unhappy with myself that I became somebody else, and that somebody else had to self-destruct, right? Maybe even when I had my personality issues, where I had a problem with being Stefan and being Ingvild, that I felt so different, and I felt like nobody gave a fuck about Stefan. Maybe Stefan was self-destructing and Ink wasn't, and Ink was doing too well. Oh, the battery is dead. The battery is fucking dead. This battery is dead. Right. Yeah. Maybe we're still trying to self-destruct. Maybe we're still trying to go crazy because of something we heard somebody says. But maybe it's because maybe it's not a question of going out for success. Maybe it's a question of feeling that's what we need to do. Maybe that's because we feel that's the only exit. The only exit is going crazy. The only exit is yeah. Or maybe because we're so addicted, we're so obsessed with making content, that we know the only way out. The only way out is not being able to do it anymore. Maybe the depression was an excuse to take a break. Maybe my body was like, yo, I know that if I don't placebo the effect of a depression, you're not gonna stop. Now we're looking for work. And the thing is, I know that no matter what the work, I will never work as hard as I'm working right now. And that sucks. Because I wouldn't hire myself. I wouldn't hire a guy that's working harder at home than at work. Think about it. This simple concept is crazy. But it's the truth. It's my truth. It will always be my truth. Obsess. In love.